Hey, this is Paul from Guitar World, and today we're going to be looking at one of my favorite new stomp boxes, the Electro-Harmonix Micro POG, which stands for Polyphonic Octave Generator. Not too long ago, Electro-Harmonix introduced the POG, which is a bigger version of this. This is the Micro POG. The bigger POG has a bunch of sliders and is housed in a bigger stomp box style, and it allows you a lot more versatility. But for our purpose here, they created a Micro POG, which is extremely simple, and it really creates some really great and new sounds. Almost makes your guitar sound like a keyboard. The trick to the Micro POG, of course, is not what you play, it's how you play it. And being very conservative in your note choices or group of notes, you will get the best results. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's get right down to it and take a look at this great new pedal. Let's begin by looking at the three knobs on the Micro POG. Now, you're not going to get control of harmonies on the Micro POG. Basically, these three knobs act as level controls, but they do offer octaves of the notes that you play. And you can see it's octave up and the sub-octave. And then over here, you're basically mixing your clean guitar signal or distorted guitar signal along with these two octave knobs. So let's begin by hearing my clean guitar sound. And now let's turn on the POG. Here we go. So instantly you're rewarded with some really great sounding keyboards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off both the octaves and begin with the dry knob here, so you'll hear. You can just hear it's pretty much a level control. And what I can do is subtract or add as much of the dry signal I want when I use the other knobs, such as the sub-octave or the octave up. So right now, I think I'm about unity gain. And that's exactly where I'm at. Let's start pulling in the sub-octave. So now my dry signal is blended along with the sub-octave at unity gain. So I can pretty much get a lower octave sound on this. Now the cool thing too is I can totally eliminate my dry sound and just have the lower sub-octave and really get a great bass sound. Here we go. So that's really cool, and what you can do too is you can also chord with that. It doesn't sound as great, but if you keep it simple, like doing 2 strings at a time, you can really get great results. So as you heard, the 2 strings sound really good together. It's not to say you can't play a full bar chord per se. It sounds pretty good, but not as good or not as clear as a 2-string. Here's a 2-string. Here's a full C bar chord. You get better results, of course, using the same C chord idea, but using the open strings. Now here is a standard C chord using just the sub-octave. Take a listen. So now let's turn that off, and now just start bringing up my dry signal again. And now I'm going to pull the octave up, and that sounds just as great. Here we go. Now my sub-octave up, my octave up is at unity gain and mixed with the dry signal. Let's hear what that sounds like. So that sounds pretty cool as well. And now let's see what happens when I remove my clean guitar signal and just have the octave up. You can really get some amazing sounds as well. And using the same idea, try and keep it simple, 2 to 3 notes at a time, or if you're going to use more, try to get some open strings as well. Here's that same C chord with just the octave up. Here we go. And here's a 2-note. Now let's start getting a blend of a little bit of everything. And I'll start with trying to set the controls just about here, so you get to hear what this sounds like on a clean sound. So here we go. Now what I can do is I'll move the sub-octave up, pull the octave up, down, and get a little more, and you get a little bit of a different flavor, doing sort of the same thing. Now, of course, being a little more conservative, as I said, and doing arpeggiated little runs here sounds really great. And let me demonstrate that to you in a clean setting, and I'll also get to a distorted setting. So let's begin with the clean setting. Here we go. Now I'm going to stick with the same setting, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to play full chords, so you get to hear what it all sounds like through distortion. It sounds pretty cool, even though a little bit muddy, but it's you know, it has that effect. But let's hear what that sounds like. Now the real fun begins, of course, when I dial in the sub-octave and the upper octave up I should say, up a little more and still maintaining the dry signal right about here. And you have a lot of fun doing like keyboard runs with this guitar. So let's hear what that sounds like, and try to isolate your notes when you play this, because it really, you get the most out of it. Here we go. last but not least, the one thing that's great about also this Micro POG is that it cleans up really nice, even when you're using distortion. And you, like as I said, you can really get some great chording and interesting note choices with this. So let's hear what that sounds like. The Electro-Harmonix Micro POG gets a gold award because it is a fun and quirky pedal. You'll get a lot out of it, and hey, if you need someone to do all the keyboard parts in the band, this may be the pedal to check out.